We're often accused of being in the pockets of billionaires, and we'd love to be in the pockets of any billionaires. So if there's any going, give us a call. But I must say, on this occasion, we disagree with Rob Hersov.
It takes 6 months to destroy a business. You get the wrong person in, they make the wrong decisions, the business can go bust like that.
Collapses.
And that's what's happened with Eskom and Transnet and Prasa and everything else. It took forever to build them, and they've been absolutely destroyed. We may never recover Prasa. So I hate to, that's why I say in my speeches, I say, if any of you young people are able to go overseas, you should go, because we've got a long, hard road to fix this country. I'm going to stay and help do it. But if you've got a chance to launch MacG podcast and chill in America, you should do it, man. You'd make a fortune. And then come back when we fix the place.
Just a disclaimer, I don't know Rob Hersov particularly, but we have spoken on the phone before. I actually do like him. I think he's got a character. He's got good ideas for South Africa. But in this particular instance, he is fundamentally, completely and utterly wrong. Because what he's trying to say is the old people, the boomers, are going to fix the country, and then the youngsters with the skills must come back once the country is fixed. We can't time when things work or not. We either make them work through action, or we don't try to make them work by emigrating. I don't think this notion of going away and then coming back is sufficient to rebuild the country. I think the very people who are leaving, according to Rob's analogy, are the ones that we need right here to actually build the country in the first place.
So the Boer went through a long period of time where they were fighting against the English, and there were many of the Boers that were basically in trench warfare for nearly 2 to 3 years. Like that meant these guys were rolling around in pig shit all day and going through mud and terrain and, you know, the back swamps of South Africa in order to basically keep their homeland, the place they wanted to raise their kids and they wanted to raise their families. This was not a very easy place to live. On top of that, cities weren't very well built. You didn't have running water. You constantly had the threat of invasion from the Zulu kingdoms. Like, this was a warring country, and yet they stuck it through with the idea of one day having a nation to call their own. These people ultimately went on to fight into world wars. They held their country together, and they eventually ended up forming the nation that we now call South Africa. We are not endorsing apartheid. We are not endorsing the Afrikaner nationalism. This is not the purpose of what we're trying to say. What we are trying to say, or what I'm trying to say, is that a lot of nations were fought and held together by the blood of their people. And these were people that believed in the idea of their nation. And as a result, those hard times created hard people, and those hard people created soft times for the nation. And what I don't believe is that what we should keep doing is we do all the hard graft and our kids do nothing. Because what then ends up happening is we breed a nation full of kids that are just soft and useless. They don't know how to generate wealth. They don't know how to fight for the things that they believe in. They don't understand democratic principles. They don't understand right from wrong. They don't have any kind of moral fiber to them. They're paper people. They are more concerned by where's their local Starbucks than how to actually build a Starbucks from scratch. How do I keep my house off grid and feed a family? How do I have good moral family values? They're not interested in those things because we've given them on a platter a soft environment in which to grow up. So it's my belief that if the kids want a place to call their own and they want a home to call their own, they need to stay here and help build it.
So I fully agree with you, but also there's also an element of sometimes you just have to build the trenches, right? Like, there's no Holocaust happening here. There's no like Nazism that's going to really like liquidate millions of people. What we have is just typical African governance failure, which is easily fixable, which is corrupt, which is weak fundamentally. It's easy to turn this around, not through elections, not through political parties, not through the state, through building your own communities, through building your own trenches, through ensuring that you put down roots in this country so that your children can live a better life here. Not a soft life, a better life. That's the fundamental difference between what we're arguing and perhaps what Rob is arguing. But if I send my child, not that she's old enough, but if I send my children to England, it's going to be a huge fuck up. I would hate for that to happen. They're going to go on the tube, they're going to drink Starbucks, they're going to complain about the cost of living, they're going to watch football matches. I mean, this is not a life that anyone with any self-dignity would want to lead by any means. And fundamentally, life is not just about making money, right? If you're just obsessed with making money, okay, maybe moving overseas might help you. despite the living cost crisis and all that sort of stuff. But here, you can make money and be fulfilled, which is extremely rare anywhere else in the world.
If your kid goes abroad and he goes to England, he's never going to be English, mate. And what exactly are you teaching your kid? We hear from people all the time say to us, oh, you should immigrate because, it's for your kid's future. It's got nothing to do with your kids. And why are you trying to convince yourself it's got to do with your kids? I don't know. I don't know who you're kidding. But actually, really what it's got is that you'd like an easier life. You'd like access to a Starbucks, and you'd like access to a nice steady paycheck where you live in a, kind of a prison society. But that's okay because, everything's safe. And you want your kids to be able to inherit the safety that you feel that you got. But newsflash is that you're not going to, because you're sending yourself to a pampered society that's in the process of destroying their own society through their own pamperedness. Your kids are going to live and inherit a very difficult society. So what's better? Do the hard graft, create a country that's for your kids, that your kids want to inherit, that you want them to inherit, that has the soul of your culture and who you are. Create that for them, but make them be involved in the creation of that so they have something to value. You can't build a business and then you go, okay, the business is super profitable. Now my kids just take the business, because your kids don't know how to run the business. They don't know how to create the business. And businesses don't always go through good times. They go through hard times. And during hard times, they need restructuring. They need a cost cut. They need to have refocus or reprioritization. If your kids were never involved in that in the first place, they're not going to know the first thing. All they're going to know is that the business was profitable. They were extracting the wealth out of the business. Now the wealth is gone. The business has hit hard times. Guess what's going to happen? They're going to close the business. They're not going to know how to stand there and fight and hold it together. And then even in that case scenario, it's like, okay, I closed the business. Now guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to hop over to another country where I don't have to think about it. I can be pampered. So if your kids go to Australia, what have you taught them? You've taught them that it's okay to run away from a fight. It's okay to run away from a fight because we lost and we don't really want to have to fight, Starbucks and all that. What do you think is going to happen when the going gets tough in Australia? Do you reckon they're going to stand there and fight? Or are they going to fuck off to the next country that looks pampered and soft?
Yeah, I cannot agree with you more. And Rob, we like you. Don't get me wrong. This is not an attack on Rob in particular. It's just an attack on that particular idea. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, your children are yours. You want to raise them in a way that benefits them the most. And believe it or not, happiness at all costs is not the greatest way to raise children. Speak to any person who grew up in Rhodesia or Zambia or Malawi in the 50s and the 60s, how they almost died from a snake bite or fell off their bike and something rammed them in the stomach or whatever the case might be. They got saved by some bush doctor somewhere. That is what life is made of. Overcoming the hardships of day-to-day life. Not running away for Starbucks at all.
And think about it from this perspective. You're just talking about people that were scared of being, a snake bite that they would have died from and not being able to get to the hospital, and how they figured out how to tie a rope on their arm to stop the blood flow and suck out poison. Those kids are adaptable. They're adaptable and they're versatile. You know what they're not scared of? They're not scared of stupid things like a small little bug. They're not walking around with masks on their face constantly because they're scared of getting some kind of virus or something. They're versatile people. They're people that aren't afraid of the world. Those are your adventurers. Those are your people that tackle the world head on. We need more people like that, man. We don't need pampered snowflakes. And by encouraging your kids to run away and have a soft little time elsewhere because it's too hard here, you're just creating snowflakes. And I don't want us to create a generation of snowflakes, because if you build a country and we build a country that's really worth keeping, and then you go, okay, guys, all come back, let's all have a free-for-all. You know what they're going to do? They're going to come here and fuck it up with Western progressive bullshit. And they're going to come here and they're just going to destroy everything we created. And we know that. Just look at the Karen in the Western Cape that's like, oh, I'll vote for anything but the DA. I must vote for the ANC, right? You know that, and that we all know that, Karen. But why do they say that? Because they live such a pampered life in certain parts of the Western Cape that they don't know the hardship that other parts of the country go through with an ANC government. They've never seen it. So they don't value what they have. And that's exactly what you breed when you send your kids abroad. You just create another bloody Karen. So as much as I love Rob, mate, if you got a few billion for us, like, we'll take it by all means. But I got to disagree with you on this one.
Indeed. So the morning shot recommendation for the day is stay here in this country with your kids. If you really don't want to immigrate to Russia, you'll be much happier there. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.
Bye.